Hi and welcome back to yet another module in the series, and the last one connected with holistic approach of education. We have been discussing this, and almost 25 to 30% of the modules in this training sessions have been worked on, and importance is given to values. If you see, we did right from aims and objectives of education. The very first module was connected with a lot of internalization of values. Then we had the holistic approach of education and how to implement it. Then we also discussed on the different methodologies on how values can be, or how values have to be implemented in the classroom. Then we, in the just previous model, I connected you with practically how you can integrate values with the subject, which is very, very important, because teaching values just as a subject has not given results. I don't say that a separate moral science class would be a better option, but the seriousness of that subject is always not considered as it has to be considered like with other subjects. Because when you teach the languages, be it English or Hindi or any local language, Urdu or any other local language, or the core subjects of maths, EVS, and in the higher classes, the social studies, a lot of importance is given. Teachers fight for an extra class if the syllabus is not completed. But if you look at the moral science, it is always considered as an extra subject, just to probably to make it as a make it as a brand event, to tell parents that we teach values, we teach moral education. We have our school is having an additional subject. Probably it's a way to attract parents, and it's a marketing strategy. But what we are trying to enforce here through this training program is, like the core subjects, like the language, the equal importance needs to be given to the moral science class, the values, and that is possible only if it is integrated with the subjects, and that is what we discussed in the previous class. The values have to be taught, they have to get internalized, and the child has to imbibe it, he has to absorb it. Like if you see the language skills, when you start it in the KG class, when he completes the foundation classes, that is grade 2, grade 3, he is almost an expert in, not an expert, but at least is good enough to speak the language which he has learned. He is good enough to perform the basic operational math skills. Why is that not happening with the values? Why is it not working out with the moral science? The reason is, we take it as an additional subject but not as a serious core subject. So here in this class today, we're going to discuss on how we implemented in the previous class, and now how are we going to assess the child with the values. Before we start, let me explain. If you remember, when we were discussing psychology, I had explained the different methodologies on how the child would learn. The very first one being, the child learns through listening, that is auditory system. Now what do we do in the auditory system? What happens is the child listens to what the teacher is teaching, and that would be either in the form of a lecture, it would be in the form of a story, and then explanation by a teacher. He hears, like if you are singing a rhyme, the child listens to the rhyme and then learns the rhyme. There he picks up the phonic sounds, the pronunciation, and then he is able to speak. After you sing the rhyme, you ask him to repeat it, and then you ask him to sing it again on his own. He's able to do it because here he's learnt it through the listening part, that is the auditory system. The second being the visual learning. right? The visual learning also is a very strong learning methodology, because you have most of the teachers today, in the previous time it was most of the flashcards, the pictures which were used, and now you have a system of smart classroom where you show them movies, you use documentaries, and then or probably an experiment which you do it in the classroom, the children see it visually and then they learn. So this is a second methodology, and the third methodology is the kinesthetic methodology, that is learning by doing. And what is learning by doing? You give them some project, they go back, work on the project, and then come back. For example, if you are doing a domestic animal class, you ask them to observe, you ask them to prepare a model of domestic animals. You give them a paper, you give them scissors, and then you ask them to do a craft work. So they learn, they cut the papers, they prepare a model, so they're learning. So the three different methodologies: the auditory system, the visual system, and the learning system. Now, why I shared with you this is, when you teach them, the assessment also has to be in the same manner. What is happening here is, we teach them through three different methodologies, and when it comes to assessment, we are only doing a summative assessment. That is subjective assessment. We just give them a question paper, we ask them to write a question, we give them a question and we ask them to answer it. We're not adapting all the three styles when we are assessing also. So it's important that when they learn by three different methodologies, you also assess them through three different methodologies. How do we do it? I'll share it with few examples. If you see, the new National Education Policy 2020 has given more importance to formative assessment than summative assessment. And what is summative assessment? It's just like it is a formation. The child learns, he forms day by day. He is learning it. That is, the value is getting formed, or a concept is getting formed in his thought process, and then at the end of 1 week he'll be able to explain what he's learned. You're not making him by heart, you're not making him write. So in the formative system, you go step by step and explain it to him, he understands it. It's just like you pour milk in a cup, and then you just drop lemon drop or 2 or 3 drops in it, and you just leave the cup there. After few hours, you would see there is a formation of curd. Phase wise, the curd formation happens. So overall, after about 7 to 8 hours or 10 hours, the curd is formed. Exactly the same way, when you're teaching anything, it has to get imbibed in the child, and it takes time. You cannot expect that you explain a concept in the classroom in 40 minutes, and after 40 minutes you expect the child to answer. You teach a value to the child, and after 40 minutes you can't expect the child to practice those values without any mistakes. It has to get formed in a system. And just like the curd gets formed in the cup, the values or any concept which you have taught has to get formed inside the system. Then at the end of 40 minutes, at the end of 2 days or 3 days or 1 week or 10 days, the child will be able to explain what he's learnt. Now, most of the time, if you see, an assessment happens, and it's a written assessment. You ask a question on you have explained value of integrity, honesty, with a story of a very famous story, if I remember, which I learned on honesty, was the woodcutter and his axe. I don't know how many of you remember. If you haven't read the story, please do read the story. It's a very interesting story which our teachers had shared years back, and I still remember it. How a woodcutter goes into the forest on the riverside and he starts cutting a tree. by chance, by mistake, the axe which he's using it to cut the tree slips out of his hand and falls into the river. And then the poor guy, he doesn't have money to buy another axe. So he's worried what to do, and then he starts praying. Then all of a sudden, an angel appears from the river, and then he says, "What happened?" Then he says, "My axe has fallen inside the river. I don't have another axe to cut the tree, and then I don't even have money to buy another one. So if I don't cut the tree today, I won't be able to sell the wood, and if I don't sell the wood, my children will not be able to get anything to eat. So I'd have to go back, and my whole family would starve today. I don't know about tomorrow because again I need an axe." So the angel goes back into the river again and comes out with a golden axe. And "This is your axe." The woodcutter says, "No, this is not my axe." He said, "This is a gold one, you can take it." "No, no, this is not my axe. I need my own axe." So the angel goes back, and this time she gets a silver one. So again the woodcutter rejects it. He says, "This is not my axe." So the third time the angel gets back the iron one, the original one which belonged to the woodcutter. And the woodcutter says, "Yes, this is mine. Please give it." So the angel is very impressed and he says, "You can take these two as a gift from me." So here he was very honest in telling which one belonged to him. If he had been greedy and he had taken a wooden one, he could not have cut the tree and he could not have used it. Even if he had used it, he would not have used it for lifelong. So the honesty. So like if you go back into the history, you would have a lot of stories from famous personalities who have been very honest in their life. So when you teach a story, and now if I give you questions, what happened to the woodcutter's axe? The children would by heart and write the answer. Some of them who are not interested in writing, who are visual learners and who are kinesthetic learners, may not be very good in listening, and they would not have heard what the teacher had shared the story when the teacher shared the story. So what happens? They don't perform well. The score goes down, and now the teacher starts blaming the child. Remember, I always believe if the child is not performing in your class, that means I as a teacher is an underperformed teacher. That means I am not a teacher worth who could teach in a classroom. I don't say that every child has to score 100%, but a child should have understood the concept. After you teach, the whole class of 24 or 30 children in your class have to understand. And again, I don't say that all 30 would understand in the first go. You may have to repeat the class, you may have to take the student separately, explain it in the way he learns. Remember, teach the way the children would love to learn. Don't teach the children the way you learnt or I learnt. Teach the way the children want to learn. This has to be the motto for any teacher. Now, a responsible teacher is somebody who will make the child understand. Then what you do? We have to create a formative assessment. We need to create rubrics. What is a rubric? Like you have taught a child an honesty value, or you have taught a child on saving water. So what is the rubric? When you start observing the child for the next 10 days. When he is drinking water, is he collecting enough water which is required for him? He is sitting down and drinking water, and then he took whatever was required. If he takes that much, if he drinks the entire water and is not wasting water, your rubric number 1 is written. So if the student doesn't even waste a single drop of water, that means he understood the concept of save water. And the same child, when he's walking past a tap in the school, if he notices the tap is dripping or the tap is flowing, the tap is open, he closes it. He uses less water when he's washing the hands. So you write rubrics. Now if he wastes about 25% of the water, then he's still not understood the whole concept. So we create the rubrics and make sure that at all the 6 levels, What are the 6 levels? One is the awareness, individualization of the concept of the value. It has to get imbibed in him. He has to learn it. He has to practice it. If though people are watching him or not watching him, even when he's alone, he's not wasting water. And then at the family, he has to take the concept, he has to take the value in the family. I gave you an example of electricity. He has to make sure that he tells his mom, he tells his dad that please switch off the light when you're not in the room. Mom, please switch off the kitchen light when you're not using the kitchen. This telling his sister, when you are out of the room, please switch it off. The washroom lights have to be off. Only when you walk into the washroom, you switch it on. If this is practiced, then it is getting into the third level. The rubrics are done, the assessment is happening. Then the friends, then the society, and then at the governance level. So if it is done, yes. This is where, now how do you assess, right, when the child is in the school, you are observing him, and then you are assessing him, and then you are giving him the marks. But what is he doing at home? How do you do it? How do you assess it? How do you assess it? It's very simple. You call for a parent-teacher meeting. But before that, you can, instead of giving him a question paper and asking him to write an essay on, or giving him a question on how to save electricity or how to save water, you ask him to prepare a speech for 10 minutes and explain how electricity could be saved. Explain what honesty is with a story, right? And also let him explain the disadvantages of what happens when somebody tells a lie, how it creates a problem for somebody else and creates a problem for self when you tell a lie. Now, when a parent is visiting on a parent-teacher meeting, you ask certain questions to the parent. You have taught a value of save water, you have taught the value of save electricity, that is giving importance on saving natural resources. So ask him what is he doing at home. The parent, in fact, if he's really practicing it very seriously, before you ask, the parent would be very, ma'am, aapne kya bata diya? What have you taught him? The minute he comes home, he switches off all the lights which are in the different rooms, and he says that he keeps insisting that please don't switch on the lights unnecessary, please switch off the fans unnecessary. He's creating a havoc at home. That means he's understood it very well. This has to be routine. Now, if a parent-teacher meeting is not happening, like I remember in one of our school, I had insisted on. I spoke to the children and I gave an importance of how they treat the parents, how they call the mother with respect, how they call the father with respect. Then I've told them now, because how do they call the mother and the father at home? We don't know, because we're not watching them. So what did you do? I told the teacher, I gave them 2 days time and asked them to come back to me with a report, and asked the teacher to call every mother and find out how is the child calling them. Now there we observed a change. A child who had gone back home, who was used to calling the mother in the singular way. In the singular way, in the sense, khana dalge, pani dege. This changed, pani dijiye, khana daliye. It got changed. The mother was quite happy. He said, suddenly I noticed that the child is giving a lot of respect when he's speaking to me. That words have to be with regard to respect. Now this is how we assess the children, and then when we found out that the children have changed, then we started appreciating them in the assembly. We started giving them certificates, right? Now asking friends, right? How are the friends behaving? So this has to be a part. This assessment has to be a part of your teaching values, and integrating it with the subject, integrating in the assessment. Then only your holistic approach of education becomes practical it becomes live in the classroom. Values have to be assessed, and you need to give them scores. You need to appreciate them. You need to give them rewards. Only then the child would be able to really take it seriously. I also have another card. You could start giving them, prepare cards. You can pick up a chart paper, a thick chart paper, and cut cards. A red card, a yellow card, a blue card, right? A green card, and level it. A green card would be the very first level. Then you go to the red level. Then you go to an orange level. Then you go to a blue level. Then you go to an yellow level. You create 6 cards. One after orange, it can be white, blue, and yellow. So if the child is slowly started practicing a value, you give him a green card. Motivate him to take a red card. Then when he takes a red card, motivate him to take the next orange. So finally, when it gets imbibed and he's practicing it in all the 6 levels, awareness is created, individualization has happened, the family, he is practicing it with the family, then he is motivating the friends to speak truth. Then he's getting into the society, he's helping people to save electricity. He has written a memorandum and taken a memorandum, visited the collector's office, the municipal office, and suggested them to replace with solar lights. Then you give him a yellow card. And that is where you get seriously the results. Before I conclude the fourth part of this series, the implementation is important. And remember, we are mentors. If you remember the very first and the second module, teacher or mentor, that is where it is important that we build character, because we are answerable. As teacher, we are answerable. We are answerable to self. We are answerable to the Creator. It is important that whatever we are learning in this training, we go back and implement in the class. All these days, I agree, we didn't know this. But today we have learnt it in the training program and implementing it in the classroom and making sure the child has really learnt and he's practicing the value. Then your whole effort of teaching them the values, your whole effort of being a mentor would be successful. Now the assignment for you is, remember we had discussed on preparing a committee, making a committee. In the committee, before that you list out the values which you want to teach in your school, forming a committee with a teacher, a principal. Then you have a parent. It's important that you get a mother into the team, at least 2 or 3 of them, a father, some child's father. Then you have the member from a management and somebody head a locality. In your locality there are different religious heads. There's a priest from a temple, there's a father from a church, there's an imam from a mosque. Anybody, if you need to get 2-3 of them, please do get them and discuss with them that this is what we are planning and the values is what is important. How can they help us in forming this value, teaching them? Probably they can give a spare 15-20 minutes on a weekend class. You can ask them to help them in the plan and then probably implement it phase wise. Do not go at one go. So this plan has to be, this assignment, and this is very simple. You need to make a plan. Identify these people. Don't talk to them. For now, identify them. After identification, list out, okay, I have 2 teachers, I have 2 parents, I have a religious head, I have a management personality. The committee is formed, and then these are the 10 different values which we would be teaching in the, remember, age appropriate. We are talking about foundation years, we are not talking about the secondary years. We're not talking about age between 10 to 15 years. I'm talking about age between 3 to 7 years, the foundation years. So age appropriate list. Along with that, what is your plan in implementing this for the next 10 months? Write it down and send it to me. That's it for this module. Come back to you with a different module. Thank you.